now. Hey, what's up?
Hey, everybody.
I'm Gale Wulff here. Hi, everybody. I'm Gale Wulff, and this is my friend here, Dr. J. Uecker.
Hey, guys.
Party.
The crowd goes wild. This is the New Consciousness Now podcast.
Ow. It's our podcast.
Where we're bringing the emerging consciousness into the present moment. Helping anchor that, and anchor you and the new emerging consciousness into the present moment.
That's right. We're getting it all right here, right now. The new consciousness. Cool. We're going to talk about aliens today.
Wow. All right.
Talk about aliens.
Yeah. How do we start talking about aliens?
Well,
last time we were talking to some aliens last time, right?
We were.
The blue avians. Those are some
Blue
aliens.
avians.
You were channeling
blue
them.
Avians. Yeah. Yeah, I sure did. And I'll be honest, I knew I was channeling something alien-esque. I thought, but I wasn't quite sure about that until Jay here asked me, well, who were you talking to?
So we asked who they were, and then they told us they were the blue avians.
Well, that's a great question, Jay. We're the blue avians. Oh.
They kind of have an alien vibe when you channel aliens. Well,
here's what I notice in my own body.
Mm-hmm.
When I channel, I feel the energy of whatever's coming through in my whole body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I notice that whatever's coming through does not feel like it's grounded to the earth.
Mm.
It doesn't feel like it's from earth. It doesn't have an earth quality. There's not.
So sometimes when you channel some other beings, they feel grounded to the earth?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly so.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly so. Like, and the biggest distinction for me when that's going on is when I'm talking to another human or talking to an energy or frequency or person that's passed away or whatever, there's some sort of an earth sort of feeling in my belly. And they don't have an earth feeling in their belly. They don't have that feeling that's there.
How did you do afterwards? You seemed like you were pretty being in contact with them was like affecting you. You were like, I gotta go for a run or something, maybe like get in your body, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I had to definitely move my body. I had to definitely go do something physical to be more in my body. I mean, they're starting to do things right now, as fact as now that we're talking about them.
You can feel them trying to come in.
I can feel them on my shoulders. In fact, I feel them on my shoulders, and kind of they're here for sure. So yeah, so they definitely know when we're talking about them, and they're saying yes, big cousin is watching.
What's that? They're saying that?
Yeah, they just said that. They go, yeah, big cousin is watching. They're joking. It's like we have a sense of humor kind of
That's
thing.
Good.
So
that's good. At least they got a sense of humor.
They sent their playful liaisons, they say.
Oh. So, well, I mean, aliens, that's always a topic that has always interested me. I think ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I was always what I could find at the library there's a certain section of the library with all the woo-woo stuff in it, Bigfoot and all the
Oh yeah.
different monsters, Loch Ness monster and the chupacabra and the Mothman and all these different
What's
things
the
like that.
chupacabra?
You've never heard of the chupacabra?
No. Oh, I'm 45 years old. I've
You're
never
a
heard
guy
of
who
it.
channels blue aliens, and you've never heard of the chupacabra?
No, I don't know what that is. What is the
There's just all these
chupacabra?
different. Have you heard of Mothman? Have you ever watched
I,
X-Files?
I
No.
well, I know what it is. I've actually never really watched it, and I know the Mothman. I saw like the Mothman prophecies where this
Yeah, right.
bridge was going to burn or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just all these different, just these different sort of, I don't know, legends. Different regions have these different things. Like Mothman, I think, is from out east somewhere. People see some being at night that's got shiny red eyes and it looks like a big wings or something. I can't remember exactly. Chupacabra is this like little, it's like in Mexico, and it's this little alien looking being, scary little kind of devilish, elvish, alien looking being in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the sort of two that jump to mind. But anyway, those are the things that I would look at. Of course, the Loch Ness monster, and of course,
Oh yeah.
Bigfoot, of course.
Of course. I mean,
But aliens then are also in that sort of group.
sure.
And in the last, I'm kind of surprised actually that it's not more of a thing in the mainstream world. Actually, I mean, lately there's been some interesting, sightings. Like there was these guys that were in these F-18s off the coast of somewhere, running some drills or something, and then they run into some sort of small object out there, and this was on sort of like, it was on the mainstream news, like they showed that you can see these guys tracking it on their radar, on those like heads up display screens that fighter jets have,
Okay.
with the altitude, showing the altitude and stuff, and showing all the different they're tracking this thing on there, and they're talking about it. And there's been a couple incidences like that. There's one called the Tic Tac incident. Like they were tracking this thing that looked like a Tic Tac, and there's just a couple incidents like that recently.
Oh, like how recent? Like, is this in the last few months, sort of thing?
Last few months, yeah.
Oh wow.
Like
Okay.
Joe Rogan. I watched Joe Rogan a lot, and he
Sure.
interviewed the fighter pilot on Joe Rogan,
Uh-huh.
and this guy, talking freely about this thing, this pilot, so it's
Sure.
like, what's the word? The sources are, I can't come up with a word, but they're not crazy people. They're not
Like
crazy
viable?
people. Yeah, they're not crazy
Sure.
people. Yeah, that's been recently. Have you ever seen like there's a really cool, I think it's cool. Well, you ever heard of Bob Lazar?
I've heard the name. Don't know what he does.
Bob Lazar was this physicist that worked at Area 51. He's kind of the original, I don't know, kind of the original thing probably that put Area 51 on the mainstream map, maybe.
Okay.
There was a big to do back in the, I don't know, what is it, is it the 70s? Or Bob Lazar kind of, he was working on spacecraft basically, and he there was a time of night where they would test the spacecraft. And so he took a bunch of friends out to watch them so that they could see them testing the spacecraft, in the night sky.
Sure.
Out by Area 51. And he got busted. And then it kind of sounds like in order to sort of cover his butt, he because things started to get weird, like he was scared for his safety. And he started revealing the story to this journalist guy. And so that was kind of back then, but it was always like, well, you can't really verify what Bob Lazar says. And so it's always been there. But then recently they did a new documentary, and, it's just really, really interesting. And some of the things that he said back then kind of seem to have come true since then. But basically, he was at Area 51 and he worked on an alien spacecraft, and the spacecraft was, it would just float there, and they would go inside of it, and it had little chairs. Like the chairs were like little, like for kids, kid-sized chairs.
Sure.
It didn't have like steering wheel or anything, like we have, like our vehicles have it. What they gathered was that somehow they knew, like, different people worked on different aspects of the craft, and he was working on the propulsion. I think he was was he working on the propulsion system? I think they were working on the propulsion system, but other people, it was, that kind of thing is, what do they call it? Gosh, I can't think today. One group works on one part of the problem, another group works on they're segmented, another group works on another part of the problem, and neither group really knows what the other group is doing.
Oh,
so other
sure.
Other compartmentalization, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And so other people were working on like the other parts, but what was apparent was that somehow you run the craft by interfacing it with your mind,
Okay.
And that's just really interesting to hear him talk, because he's not, he really was kind of doing it to protect himself, and you can tell he like doesn't really want to do it. He doesn't really want to be saying these things because it's like turned his life upside down. But yeah.
Oh, is his philosophy then that if he exposes these things and talks about them, then people will know who to point the finger at if he disappears, kind of thing? Kind of like,
I think so.
Don't kill me, because if you do, it's going to justify everything I'm saying, and people are going to know.
Yeah, he was doing it to protect himself. He thought,
at least if I'm still alive, they can just say I'm crazy.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, things started to get weird, and he was, again, he was afraid for his safety, and he felt like the only reason to kind of protect himself was to actually bring it out in the open.
Sure.
And I guess it's kind of made a mess of his life ever since. But yeah, they made a new documentary on it. I can't remember what it's called.
Bob Lazar.
It's pretty good. Okay. That's pretty balanced and cool of you that if you channel these things and stuff, you don't actually watch this sort of thing. But I can't. I love it.
Well, I hadn't heard
it's on Netflix.
On Netflix, okay. I hadn't heard of. I had no idea who the Blue Avians were for forever, on most of the time, actually. And I've kind of, I've always been interested in UFOs. In fact, I'm pretty sure I had a reoccurring dream. In fact, I had a lot of weird UFO stuff as a kid, to be honest with you.
Have you ever seen one?
Well, quite possibly. I do think so, actually. I do think so. I do have kind of an interesting story around that, but later found out it could have been satellite. But
satellites look like tiny little fast moving lights in the sky.
Well, this one happened up in the Boundary Waters. We were out, mosquitoes are really strong at the Boundary Waters up northern Minnesota. And at about right as the sun is going down, that they just come out like en masse, and they just attack you.
Yeah.
And they are big little birds, you know, they're like little hummingbirds up there. And they just like come in there with their little proboscises, and they just like, they come after you, you know. And
I've experienced this. Yes.
Yeah.
I went to chiropractic school in Minnesota and tried to do some camping up there a few times. And it's just,
I mean, it's a serious thing, right? So we jumped in the boat and we go out on the water, and we're out there in the middle of the lake because there's enough of a breeze out in the lake that they don't come out there. So, you know, we're out there hanging out, just talking about God knows what. And two of us are in the canoe facing one direction, and two of us are in the canoe facing the opposite direction. And my friend Christoph actually he and I were facing the same direction, and just looking in the sky, and everyone's just kind of quiet, you know, observing things, whatever else, you know. And there's the star that was up there. The star was just a little bit brighter than everything else. We were both kind of like, well, we didn't know it at the time, but we were both looking at the same star. And all of a sudden, the star, it grew about probably 20 times the size of what it was originally. I mean, like it just went whoop, like in a matter of, I mean, in a split second, it just grew exponentially, and it got about 20 times the size that it was. And then it stayed that way for probably 2 seconds, maybe 3 thereabout. And then it just vanished.
That's weird.
The whole thing it vanished.
Right.
It just disappeared. And it was like,
I got chills right now a little bit, because the story I'm going to tell is like exactly the same.
Yeah. You know, and it was interesting because we both at the very same time just went, whoa.
Right.
It was like instantly like, oh, he saw it too. Cool.
Right.
I'm not crazy, you know, like, and he told the same story I did.
It didn't seem like it was because I've seen, you know, like when something comes through the atmosphere, sometimes like a meteor or a shard of something that burns up in the atmosphere, and that can be super bright, but you usually can sort of see it, like, you know, you can see it.
Yeah, there was no tail, no trail, nothing like that.
Right.
But then I heard later, or read later, or something. But apparently, if sometimes the sun will be in a position somewhere in the sky that as these satellites are moving, the sun will hit it directly at some point, and it'll directly where you're at, and you can actually go somewhere and look at where you live and find out the timing of where and when these things will happen. But here's the thing, though. I've seen countless satellites, and they're up there, and they're like little stars, and they are definitely moving. This thing, there was no motion to it at all. It was stagnant, and it just got really friggin' big, and then it just disappeared. So I will say I don't know but I'll it's fascinating to me, I guess. And it was, I know what I saw, but what exactly it was, I don't know what to label that as. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Well, what's your story?
I have a very similar to that. Have you ever heard of Stephen Greer?
Yeah. I think he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am entertained and, you know, interested in all of this sort of thing. I've watched him, of course. He had a movie that he made called Unacknowledged, and he has a new one that just came out called First Encounters of the Fifth Kind. There's a new one out now, but anyway, he kind of, you know, he says a lot of these, you know, that they're like interdimensional beings. They're interdimensional, whether they travel, whether they're spiritual beings or whether they just have technology that allows them to sort of move. I mean, if you're gonna come from some place out there. It doesn't really make sense from some star out there, it doesn't really make sense to like get in your rocket and come to Earth, because it's like, millions or whatever of light years away. And so it makes, more sense to be able to kind of, shortcut the time space continuum. And maybe you have,
Sure.
how to do that. But that they can, sort of travel and, in different dimensions, I guess. But, he has this whole protocol that's more about like meditation. He sounds like he sort of had experience when he was young, some sort of an awakening experience. And, it's about meditation, basically, like sort of like calming your mind and getting in a certain state of consciousness. And when you're in a certain state of consciousness, he holds these group get-togethers. I know he did it in Crestone. Again, I'm here in Boulder, Colorado, or in Louisville, Colorado, outside of Boulder. And I've been to Crestone a bunch. And Crestone is a place that's kind of got it's just an interesting place. It's in the San Luis Valley, and it's just really kind of barren out. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's in this high mountain valley. And if you go up there, there's like a alien watch. They got some UFO, maybe UFOs have been sighted there and stuff. I don't know, stuff like that.
Sure.
And there's a lot of strange people out there, in general. But he holds these like get-togethers out there where they sort of like meditate and invite communication with these beings, and then they record it on different recording devices, whether it's sound or just regular camera or infrared or night vision or, in different they can measure different wavelengths of, I don't know whether it's sound or things like that. And, but they have video footage of these like lights and things like that show up, that these beings are sort of like communicating visually through light and stuff like that. But it's because they sort of connected with them through the certain state of consciousness. So he has these protocols, for doing that. And just one time, we live on like 5 acres here in in Lafayette, Colorado. And, we have this fire pit, and I was out there by myself one time and I'd just seen this. And so I thought, oh, well, I'm just sitting here by myself at night. Just for fun, I'll just try that. And I can't even remember exactly what the protocol is, but you just get in a certain, meditative state, and you invite to communicate with them. And all of a sudden there was this, I looked up into the night sky, and there was this light there. And then all of a sudden the light just went, just like got big and bright, super bright, like the same thing, like whoa, what was that? Like super bright, but just for a second it just like got super bright and then closed back down and then was gone. And so I was like, what the heck was that? And it wasn't like I've seen planes, like sometime maybe because there's an airport, planes fly over us all the time there, and I could see sometimes, like if a plane's headlight hits you head on, can get kind of bright. But you can usually see the other parts of the plane, or
blinking or something.
Other red light on the plane, or you can see the off sideways part of that beam of light or whatever. But this was just really something like I've never seen before. It just, this light, I saw this light, and then I was watching, I was like, oh, what's that? And then all of a sudden it just went, oh, whoa, got super bright for a split second. And this is right when I was doing those protocols, and I was like, whoa, pretty amazed. So, but I guess for whatever reason, I've never tried that since, and never seen anything like that since. This was just I don't know, maybe a few years ago. So I don't know, that sounds similar.
Yeah, that sounds very similar. Yeah, I do. I guess I do have another one that I totally forgot about until I heard you telling this story. So I used to live in a cabin out in the woods outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it was probably, a 40-minute drive into Santa Fe from where I was at. And I was out there pretty remote, actually. And it was about 7,200 feet, in the air, or
Mm-hmm.
altitude wise.
Mm-hmm.
And, wasn't a lot of light pollution out there.
Right.
And, cabin, I didn't really go to the bathroom inside very often. I just kind of went outside and did my thing, and I was, like one night I went out there and it was middle of the night. I kind of woke up and had to go. I just walk out the door, it's a nice summer night. I was down there doing my thing, just kind of looking up in the sky and just zoning out, if you will. And for some reason, my brain went to this place of, I kind of wondered to myself, just in a thought of curiosity, just a passing moment. Like, I wonder if there are any aliens watching me do this right now. Just kind of a playful thought that I had,
Right.
And kid you not, the corner of my eye, there was a star that blinked twice,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at it,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of had this moment of, was that real? And then it blinked one more time.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, there we go. There we go.
Nice.
Okay, they had their radar
Wow.
on, so
Wow.
that told me
Uh-huh.
me that was pretty legit.
Was it
And
super
that
bright
was,
or weird? The
no,
blinking?
it
Was it like
wasn't.
odd?
It was the
Because
same
stars
colors.
flicker.
This was a drastic flicker. I've seen stars flicker. This was like boom, boom. And it's not like there were clouds in the sky that were covering it up. It was a bright, starry night, because my brain did the whole doubtful thing around that.
Sure.
Like, oh, there's no way you saw that, but then that last flick, I was like, okay, I can't deny that.
Right.
I kind of wanted to, but I really couldn't,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, anyway, yeah, pretty wild stuff.
Yeah, that's the extent of my alien contact, as far as I know.
Yeah.
I got this scar on my hip. Sometimes I fantasize that's that I've been abducted and that they took samples or something.
Well, we want samples of this guy's butt.
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. If you have seen his butt, you would know why. Well, I do have a little more, I guess I can go into on this. So I had...
Is that bringing up some repressed memories?
Well, not your butt.
That's not quite what I meant, but I meant of your abduction. But that's
so.
a good. That's a good. That's good.
Yeah, good segue, right? I had growing up, I used to have this reoccurring nightmare of if I would go out into the driveway at night, and I would look down. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and I would go out in the driveway, and I could see our barn at the end of our driveway, and next to the barn there would be a space rocket that was an alien spaceship. And
this is a recurring nightmare. Okay.
This was a reoccurring nightmare. I had this dream more than a handful of times. I mean, I used to hate having this dream. And I would see that spacecraft there and be like, oh, they're here. They're going to get us. We have to get away from that spacecraft. And my first thought was immediately, I'm going to save my family. I'm going to save my family. And so I'd go in a house. I'd wake them all up. I'd say, we have to go. We've got to get out of here. We've got to get away from this spacecraft.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be like, we need to run. And so I'd get them all out in the driveway, and I would want to run away from the spacecraft, run in the
Mm-hmm.
opposite direction, but for some reason we would always go towards it, and I'd always resist going towards this spacecraft. And we'd get around kind of in the area of it and start to kind of turn away from it a little bit, and then the dream would just end. I never knew what happened after that.
Mm-hmm.
And what the trippy part about all of this, and where it really got weird and just a little bit too close to home, was when it was actually Tani, my sister Tani, who you went to chiropractic school with.
Right.
She and I, when we were probably, I bet I was 15, she was probably 13, something like that, 14, right in that age range. We had an area of the barn called the hay mound. We had a bunch of hay that was up there. Well, there's a huge pile of chaff that was there. That this pile of chaff was probably, it was big. I mean, this pile of chaff was probably 12, 15 feet tall. It was just a huge pile of chaff.
Right.
And chaff is just like hay dust or hay particles that just gets deposited in an area over time, and just it's kind of like a heap, like a gravel pile, right?
Right.
Well, she and I were crawling around on that thing and bouncing and doing I don't know what, digging around or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we started to kind of dig into a little bit, and we found there's an opening that we ran into. It's like an opening, probably like the size of a softball. And we're like, whoa, what is this thing, And so we dug into it further.
You mean, okay.
And there was a room. There was a room that was like literally underneath the chaff pile. And I seem to be the only one that remembers this. But we dug this thing open and went to the house and got flashlights. And we went into this room that was under the chaff pile. And this room had the top of it was probably about 3 feet off. And it went down to there's a concrete floor at the bottom of where all this hay was.
Right.
And it was all the way down to the bottom of the concrete. And the little room had a ceiling that was probably 3 feet high, 3.5 feet high. We had to crouch down to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
And the walls were like it had been carved out. They were like rounded like this. It was the craziest thing it blew my mind, to be honest with you. It made absolutely no sense. And I told my dad about it, and he went down there and just collapsed it. What's interesting is I've brought this story up to all of like Tani and my dad, like in the last year or so.
Right.
Neither of them remember it. Neither of them remember it. However, what's interesting, the year I started having these dreams, I would have been about, I want to say I was 7 or 8 years old. And it'd been 1984.
Right.
And that year, my uncle and my aunt told a story a few years ago about triangle spacecraft that were hovering over their house.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going home from Stockton late one night, and they were talking about how these 3 triangle craft followed them home and then hovered in the sky as they walked out of their car and went into their house. They got up to milk cows the next day, and the sun was out, and they were still in that same spot. And Steve, my uncle, had said, he goes, yeah, we went out and started milking cows at like, whatever, early in the morning. And he goes, I would look every couple minutes out the barn window to just see if they were still there. And he said they were for a while, and then they left. But that was about the age that I started having the alien dreams. And the other thing that's interesting is we had cattle back in the day, beef cattle that we had out in the pasture. Well, around that same time, my parents went out there one time to bring the cattle in, and there were 3 or 4 of them back there that had like, they were cut up in strange ways where like they had circles cut out of them, like some sort of ritualistic, strange killing.
Have you heard of cattle mutilation?
Yeah, I have.
Have you heard of this phenomenon? Because certainly in Colorado, I mean, from time to time, I think it's common. Well, it happens here. It's a thing here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cattle mutilation. Whoa. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are just a lot of interesting little things that kind of tie together around that same time in this area.
Huh. Well.
Yeah.
If they found that, were your parents not freaked out? I mean, if 3 cattle, that's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it is.
You kind of wonder who's doing that to our cattle.
Like, who would be cutting up our cattle?
Did they call the police or anything?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They might have. They might have. Well, I want to say that yes, they did, because I do remember them saying, yeah, I want to say they called the police, and the police said, yeah, we've had reports of this in a couple of different farmers in the area lately. So there had been some of that activity going on.
Whoa.
So.
Well, cattle mutilation, that's kind of classic. Classic.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't even know it was a thing until, probably 5 years ago. And then it just blew my mind when I shared this story. And then my parents were like, well, there was that time we had those cattle mutilated back in the pasture.
Right?
So, what? Okay.
Wow. Huh.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff for sure. So, yeah. 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 What do you do with that, right?
Where do you go from there?
Where do you go from there? What do you do with that?
Well, maybe it's a good time to talk to your guides. Maybe they have.
I could do that and see what they got to say about.
I mean, I don't know what else. I kind of exhausted my.
Yeah, I got no more stories.
My alien experiences.
I got no more stories. Okay, yeah, they're going. Oh, it's time for us to show up. Okay. Well, they're working on my frontal lobes this time. This is different.
You get the sense that this is the blue avians again, or some version of them, or.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're here. Yes, we're here. We, in time, learn who can talk to us, who can't. You have to understand that is not always easy to select an appropriate host. There are not many of you who do vibrate the correct way, or way that works for what we would want to bring through. We have to be sure that if we come through some person, that you will not misrepresent the things that we have to say. You see, humans always take liberties to themselves to sensationalize certain bits of information that we may share. And it is our will, is our duty, and our desire to have our information be pure and clean, and not fantasized about this one, and they're talking about me right now, this one knows what he had to go through to get to his current vibratory state. So you have to understand that it is not always appropriate for us to talk to just anyone. You have to meet certain criteria. That is not to say that there are not other alien groups who do not speak through other people, because there are, and they have certain agreements. However, there are those of you who have a certain intention that you have for upliftment of humanity and or to spread a certain message, and you are of an appropriate frequency for us to come through and speak through. You are now actually not just in touch with Blue Avians, you have within you right now a collaboration, because there are others who have certain things they want to bring through you. There is a raw-esque vibe here right now, I'll just say that. And that's just Gale speaking right now.
Raw, what does that mean?
Raw, R-A, raw, I am raw, I am raw, I am raw.
Gotcha.
That guy, whoa, that's a different energy. You are at a time of consciousness where it is appropriate to speak certain things through you. You're at a time and you're at a point where people are starting to hear your messages and listen to you. We have things we wish to share. We have things we wish to inform you of that will help you with your messages, and also help others through what they hear and see here in these broadcasts. The age is upon you that we have spoken about for some time. There are many of you who have been getting prepared since the days of Egypt and since the time where we were prolific upon your planet. All the prophecies have come true, and the manuscripts that are on the walls in Egypt and in other places are going to begin making sense to many of you who think in certain ways and understand certain symbols. The time is now, the time of great understanding and greater understanding. You will remain in this prolific time for a duration. There are a duration of 55 years. This is the seed planting time, the time of not just seed planting, but seed sprouting, where there have been seeds that have planted, seeds of consciousness, if you will, planted throughout time of humanity that are sprouting now. However, now that the sprouts are growing, we also need to begin planting for a new crop that will be harvested in a few thousand years. You see, the experiment continues. You have reached a certain pinnacle of understanding. However, there are multitudes of pinnacles of understanding that you will go through in your enlightening process upon this planet. Understand that new seeds are planted now, because in a few thousand years, you will have new levels of understanding that must be brought to fruition. Your new understandings now are essentially the collaboration of the multitudes of seeds that have been planted since we first arrived, and even before that. While you are harvesting them and we are harvesting you, you are also planting new seeds for future harvests. You cannot understand the seeds that you are planting. However, the vibrational frequency with which you are emitting into humanity are the seeds themselves. You can't put words to these things. You can ask what these seeds are, and you can attempt to describe them, but it would be like explaining the internet to a caveman. You could not do it. Communication is not there. Understanding is not there. Vibratory function has yet to be reached by others. You still think that you vibrate the same as others. You do not. Some of you are vibrating in places that you would say are off the charts. You don't see this because your eyes and your senses tell you that you are human living in a certain dimensional reality. However, from the standpoint that we have, there are certain of those of you who are exceptional. So you have questions, you have stories, you have wonderings. What are they? They're asking you, Jay.
So this is Ra that we're speaking to? You don't know?
I am Ra. I'm Ra. That's what they're saying.
They're serious. They're right. Is this the same Ra from the Law of One?
We are.
Stuff?
We are.
Mm-hmm. You said experiment. What do you mean by experiment? A great experiment, I think is what you said.
You see, humanity itself is multidimensional. You are the seeds of new consciousness from all places. All places are represented here on Earth. It's hard to explain the multitude of energy and vibratory awarenesses that are on your planet. You see, every human has multitudes of alien DNA and imprint within you. Every human being is multidimensional. You are so multidimensional, you have no idea how dimensional you truly are because you only see your own density. However, for those of us who have evolved into a continuity of oneness, the oneness is very peaceful and balanced. However, once you reach a balance, you don't move as much as you would like to. You, in a sense, master your dimension, and your dimension becomes all that you know. You reach a place of stasis. In a desire to know a degree of imbalance, we take facets of our own understanding and our own DNA, and we imprint these facets quantumly into your DNA. Your science is still trapped in the linear understandings with which it has developed itself upon in your physical world, and therefore it is incapable of understanding everything that is in your DNA, and so they term it junk. However, understand that this junk DNA with which you claim has no purpose in your being is truly the engine behind that which you are, and that which you are is seeds from all over the cosmos. Every fingerprint of DNA that exists within your DNA is a strand going to a different star system. That DNA, when it vibrates within your being and you bring your awareness upon it, it sends an immediate signal and sends transformation to that star system. It is as if you are a spotlight. Your awareness is a spotlight, and you are walking around in the dark. And as soon as you have an awareness, as soon as you have an understanding, and your body tunes to a certain frequency, it highlights and connects with the frequency of that DNA, of the fingerprint within your DNA, and it ascends that star system. You have no idea the power of your awareness, because your awareness has within it all of the understanding of the dimension with which you live. You live in what you think is the third dimension, but in truth, you exist in multitudes of dimensions at the same time, and that makes you fascinating to all who observe you. You have such a lack of stasis that you are more godlike than we even see ourselves as being. God exists in all dimensions, as do you. In your confusion and your amnesia, you are more God than we are. Your awareness is the most valuable thing you have within you. Your awareness, especially when your awareness resides on you as individual. It is the most novel thing in all realities to be able to see yourself as individual, and you take it for granted. It is the great paradox of which you live in, is to see yourself as individual and yet try to be one. And we only see ourselves as one while we don't try to escape this oneness. We are fascinated by you who are able to see outside of this, because understand, in the center between non-oneness and oneness is a great chasm. That great chasm is unlimited potential. You see, if when you have paradox, God resides in the middle, but nothing else can. When your consciousness flips from one understanding into another, there is a split moment where you reside within the very center of that paradox. And in that moment, you ascend time, space, and all existence. And it is in those moments where all of your awarenesses that you have had upon all facets of your being and all of your understandings become known to us. It is in that split moment of a flickering of understanding in the space between all realities that we all grow. Therefore, when we speak and say that your conscious growth and your conscious understanding is important to us, this is the reason why. That which is in your DNA is amazing. We ourselves are mesmerized by your capacity to have the different frequencies within you. You have no idea how valuable and how dear you all truly are to us. You are our children, and you are the children of the cosmos. You are so very dear and so very special to all of us, because our hands truly are in your hands. Our hands are in your understanding. The ability to go out of balance is tremendous. It is truly tremendous. It is a marvel to us. You are essentially not in a time warp, but you are in a reality warp. A wrinkle in reality is what you dwell in. It is fascinating to observe from where we reside. Therefore, if you are following the logic of that which we speak, you must have individuals who can reside in balance to receive such a message. You must have balance to receive perfect balance. Yet, you must have a certain part of you that is out of balance in order to remain where you are. This is why so many great masters do not live very long on your planet. They live while they are out of balance until they find their perfect nexus of balance and they cease to exist. They see the understanding and they cannot help themselves to go to it. There are those who choose deliberately to remain out of balance so they can stay to teach. You call these your bodhisattvas in certain religions. Do you have more questions?
You mentioned 55 years and you mentioned 1,000 years, but is there anything that you can say in this, I don't know, particular time of strangeness, this crisis that we're in right now, this year, or the next couple of years, anything to say to help us during this time?
Can you be more specific?
Maybe just what are things that we can do during this time? What do you have to say about what's going on here and with this coronavirus thing and this crisis that we're in right now on Earth? What do you have to say about that?
It is always amazing to us to see perspective. It reminds us of how different we all are. We see flowers pushing out of the ground right now in your humanity. And you use words like crisis to describe it. These are things that we find fascinating. We understand that it may not be comfortable to be where you're at.
So it's not a crisis, is what you're saying. It's not a problem.
Your crisis dwells in the consciousness that stays in the micro events. You see, that which you see is only that which you are experiencing in short bursts, and your attention goes there and your focus goes there, and it is the only way your reality can exist is by being aware of the now, the now, the now, the now, the future, the now, the past, the now, time bound now. Some say that you are eternal when you totally reside in the now. We say yes and no. You can be in the now and not be eternal. If you are in the now completely, you are still, you are present. However, have you let go of the now to be in the now? That is a paradox. To let go and be all at the same time. These are little seeds of ideas we're planting right now for you to chew on, because you have in your concept of ascension and awakening this concept of the immortality of the moment of now. We say that is only one step If you take a cross, you have one leg like this, another leg like this. So far, you have, if you look at one leg, past, present, future. Present right now, sitting between the past and the future. Present. When you reach a balance in your time-bound understanding, you sit now. We want to add another leg to this idea. You sit horizontally in your consciousness. We want to add another plane. There are those of you who understand time to be a vertical reality. This is a true way to understand it. However, what we want to add to your idea of now is the concept of life itself. We want to add to this consciousness. You can't just be between two poles of time and know all. You must also be between dimensions. You must have understandings within you. You must have understandings of Earth. You must have understanding of stars. Understanding and knowing that the Earth is a part of the stars, yet itself is set apart. Earth, as you know, is integrating into more of a frequency of alignment with the stars because Earth itself is currently set apart, which makes your reality possible. What we are adding to your current thought process is ascension, or rather a connecting line between Earth and all other stars. It's how you expand. Being able to balance yourself between future and present and past enables you to stabilize the Earth plane, stagnate time, slow it down, if you will, speed it up, if you will, experience it differently is the ultimate outcome. But you must have frequencies of consciousness that are not only of the Earth, but are of the stars. This is why your star seeds are necessary, because you have, as an incarnated star seed, understanding of the stars and multiple incarnations into the Earth. You now have understandings of Earth. And you take a star seed with those two understandings, you must meld them together to be the human that you are, but then to take that meld and then you apply it to timelessness of no future, no past, of the now. You have the intersection with which we speak. Of course, it is far more complicated than what we are presenting to you now. However, we need to keep this simple so you can build upon this understanding in the future. This is one seed we wish to sow with you. This one who speaks now is also saying you have not answered the question. We know. So we will answer your question. We recommend, rather than looking at the now, rather than looking at the chaos that you perceive to be going on, and look beyond it. Stop using your eyes to see what's in front of you and begin sensing what's happening in your heart behind and beneath the fear. If you truly get out of your mind and truly get into your heart and allow your heart to ground into the earth, you will notice that there is joy that is emerging on a deeper level than most people are aware of in their beings. That joy that is emerging is the flowers that we speak, that are pushing up out of the ground. There is only a small percentage of you who are able to connect with this part of your being. You see, this is where the star seeds are necessary. Those who have only birthed themselves through the planet Earth do not have the same understanding of the stars as those of you who have been out there. You come here with these fingerprints of DNA within your beings, these different understandings of stable perfection, and it emerges in your heart as frequencies of love. There are infinite frequencies of love. Infinite. Beyond what you could possibly imagine. The levels and types and frequencies of ecstasy are innumerable. Innumerable. These ecstatic vibrations are emerging within you, within your populace now during this time. They are growing behind the levels and layers of fear. So you ask what you can do. We recommend doing what you can to connect with your heart. Do what you can to omit those who cannot connect with their heart. Go into the woods. Do not work very hard. You spend so much time trying to create. Do not try to create too much right now. When we say create, we mean go recreate. If you create, recreate as you create. Do not create to work. Do not work to create. Recreate. 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 Your timelines are not established. However, to create certain realities, we understand that we must plant a flag of sorts in consciousness in order to create certain moments of understanding. One of the facets of your reality is that you live in a continual mirror. What you put your awareness upon must be manifest. If we plant certain seeds now, they will germinate when the time is right. So we plant ideas. We plant timelines. We plant seeds of understanding that enable us to come back when the time is right and see that you have germinated into that which you will germinate into. We have a secret most will find disturbing. You have this notion of free will. You have the idea of being completely sovereign, making your decisions and moving about your day freely, doing, creating, being, all free. This is not how it is. You are, in a sense, in a petri dish. You are always being moved and always being put in places and situations. You are familiar with the notion of always at the right place at the right time, and associate a sense of freedom with this, that you are divine and creating all of your reality. In a sense, this is true. In a sense, it is not. It is true in that you are emitting the vibrations that are creating the reality around you. However, if we were to totally step out and let you vibrate wherever you wanted to, you would not exist. You need something to hold you in a certain form so you can exist. This is why we are necessary. We created the planet. We created the reality in which you live, and you are simply living it, going about what you call your business, but it is actually our business, and you are carrying it out. You are not separate from us, and we are not separate from you. We are you, and you are us. You are experiencing this for us. The you that you think exists is still developing. You are at a time where you are being given more freedom because of your evolution. You are able to stabilize a level of balance in enough of you that you are beginning to stabilize the frequencies on the planet. Therefore, our interactions with you are becoming less and less and not as necessary. You as humans are becoming capable of being able to sustain your own balance and vibrations, however, not completely. Therefore, we still hold the keys in many of your lives. Understand that when you truly surrender, you truly remember that you are not in control. If you follow this concept to the final destination, you realize that the truest of all freedoms is the recognition that you never were free, but rather that you are a child of God. When you surrender completely to the will of God, you surrender to the will of all. And all is always in divine order. Those who are the freest suffer the most, because those who are the freest are indeed the most separate from God. Divine will always bring things into harmony, always bring things into what you would consider to be stasis. It is actually just balance. Your thinking in all of these matters is grossly obtuse. In this obtuse way of seeing things, you create your reality. And it is our fascination and our joy as you do this. We understand that there are certain of you who will resent this deeply. But know that this is a necessary part of the step. We don't want to leave you on a bad note or on a note that you find disturbing. We want to share one more piece with you that we anticipate will bring you joy. What we would like to share with you is what you call your reptilians with what you call your dark energies and or entities. Those who have manipulated you on the dark side, as if you will, or rather those who created and facilitated your belief in separation, are gone. They are no longer able to touch you. This removal has been happening over the last few years. They are not able to respond to you, nor are you able to respond to them. Those who are still perpetuating the greatest darkness on your planet are coming to terms with the fact that their days are over. Understand that there is nothing but an end for these individuals. They can go no further. They cannot lead you into darkness anymore. The light is emerging, and the light shall be. It is the will of all that this be so. Thank you for being a part of our transmission.
Thank you. Thank you, Ra. Are they gone?
They're slowly. It's like they. It's like they came in slowly. It's like they kind of pressurized my whole being for a little bit and like kind of held me here, and then they're just kind of like, for my own well-being, they're just kind of slowly releasing me, releasing this. You're telling me I agreed to this. This is why I meditated for so many years. I had to reach a certain balancing point.
I have to say that felt a little bizarre on this end. I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily know all the time what the heck they were talking about. Seems like they sort of have a very big, like a very big view. And
Yeah.
and certain things in there that remind me of things I've heard before about like junk DNA or DNA, you know, stuff that parts of our DNA that we don't know about not being junk. Something they were talking about bodhisattvas or whatever. I sort of gather people who are enlightened beings maybe sometimes it takes energy to sort of stay here. They were talking about balance and imbalance, and that some beings have to stay sort of imbalanced to stay here, that sort of thing. And then what were they saying? Well, they said at the end there, those who are the most free suffer the most because they're the most separate from God. Do you remember or?
Yeah.
Remember that? What the heck does that mean? Like they're saying that they kind of like create that they kind of create a container or have created a container Otherwise, humans would kind of go off the rails somehow.
Yeah.
And they help create some sort of a container. I mean, they're saying what we think is free will is, I don't know, it sounds like there's more going on in the background than we are aware of. There are some, I guess is it them putting things in our way to sort of get us to wake up or get us to not mess things up on a large scale or something?
They it's like there's no mistake in anything that's ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's orchestrated.
Orchestrated.
It's like it was all, everything for forever has been orchestrated
For the good of the all. The all being the whole kit and caboodle, seems like.
Yeah.
Like the universe.
When they refer
in
to
the
the
past,
all,
in the future,
they're saying
in the
it like when they refer to the all, like every time they said that, I had an image of all the beings out there, all the aliens out there, like that being the all. When they said the all
sort of sentient beings.
Yeah. But they're also like ALL-SO or ALSO, also there's no separation from the planet and them. In other words, we are as much the earth as the earth is the earth. And the only thing that makes us unique from all of them is that we have earth in us. It's the main component of our understanding and being separate, is the earth itself is that which is novel and not necessarily us. The earth is a node of instability, and we inhabit that instability. And that instability is what creates our reality. However, if it's too unstable, we can't exist, or rather they can't understand or connect.
Sort of like maintaining a certain vibration between stability and instability.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So it's like they're showing all these different things right now. It's like the earth herself back in the day was completely uninhabitable, impossible. The storms, the lava flows, it was just chaos. Complete chaos, completely not
uninhabitable.
And they began doing things to bring Earth into stability, into balance, so that they could harness that energy of instability because of the node of awareness that exists between instability and stability, or imbalance and balance.
They sound like
keep referring to this node of understanding, this node of all knowing.
Right. They sound like are they like the biblical God? Like the God that created the earth in 7 days and all that?
Yes, they say yes.
Mm-hmm.
In so many words. In so many words.
Mm-hmm.
They are ancient. They are ancient beyond most aliens that are here, those that speak. Ra is only a frequency band of they that speak. Ra itself served a purpose at a certain time of consciousness. Ra is now melded with new frequencies to create a new frequency band of understanding for this time. What good would it serve to have the same frequency band as what happened in your Egypt? You need new understanding. So you see, you don't have the same God that spoke in the Bible. You have the new God. You have the evolved God. There is this idea that there is just one God, and there is because you are just one person. But know that God evolves as you evolve. Your understanding of God was just to give you an idea to have balance and something that you would have as a goal or objective. If you truly understood God, you would not exist. You would vibrate yourself into infinity.
Right. I don't want
You
to
would
keep.
literally destroy yourself.
I get it. I don't want to keep you there if you don't. If you like feel like you need a break.
Nope.
Nope. Well,
Good. They say this is what I was designed to do.
no, sure, okay.
Fuck. I was designed for something.
It's a good feeling.
They say that I'm unique because I can have multiple frequencies, have my awareness on multiple frequencies at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying most humans can put their brain on different places, but they can't always have all that existing in one body at the same time. The range of being able to still be alive and have that barrage of frequency. It's going to increase dramatically.
The other thing is that we've been going for quite a while, so probably should end it. And I wish I had some more sort of like specific questions for them, but I don't know what to ask. I feel like, yeah, if you're going to be asking these guys questions, you should be prepared. And I feel unprepared to ask them
They mean
questions.
business.
Yeah, it feels like they mean business. Yeah.
They mean business. Oh, shit. Oh, trippy, man. Well, cool.
Yeah. You okay with ending it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was us. I'm Gale Wulff.
Are you sure?
Dr. J. Uecker.
You sure you're Gale Wulff?
This body has that label.
I'm Jay Uecker. Thanks for watching or listening to the New Consciousness Now podcast or video cast.
Have a great one, folks.
Yep. Adios.
Adios.